Hello everyone. Now, in between playing on my EU account, I've also started grinding some lines on my Russian account. The original Potato, the account I used to play before the press account. And my chat voted for the German cruiser line as the first one for me to grind. And honestly, the low tiers, well, the tier 4 in particular, tier 3, you go past them so quickly these days, even without premium, just with all the XP bonuses and stuff. It's not exactly a lot of games. I would say the first real challenge comes at the tier 5 when you reach the Königsberg. Now, I have a 10-point captain, I think, so no super captain here, just a 10-point captain, and I think our skill build is Last Stand, because the German cruisers tend to lose engine and rudder quite a bit, all the way basically up to the Hindenburg, I would say. Priority target, to know if someone is shooting me, sorry about that, I was tabbed out. And Adrenaline Rush, to make use of that damage. And finally Concealment Expert, to get better stealth. This is tier 7 matchmaking, which is of course quite unfortunate. The other unfortunate part is an enemy DD is quite obviously playing very, very aggressive. Now, the Königsberg, generally you want to avoid taking any early fights in the Königsberg. If you can shoot from behind islands, or if you can shoot a single target, but if you look at priority target, there's 2 people targeting me, they're pushing aggressively on this flank. Generally, you don't want to be in a situation where you're in the open water and you can be shot at by a lot of enemy ships. You never really want to be in this position. So I'm obviously trying to get disengaged as quickly as possible. I'm not even trying to use my front guns, I'm only using my back guns, and I'm just running for my life. And this is what you need to do in low tier cruisers. You often see people play far too aggressive in low tier cruisers and instantly explode. No, especially early game is not the time for any sort of aggression. There are opportunities for aggression, as you will see later in this match, but early game is absolutely not the time. That HE is very, very scary because, well, as you can see, a couple of shells started too far, broke my torps and broke my rudder. This is why we have Last Stand, and of course this is also why we're running for our lives. I somehow managed to get the worst RNG possible, and I had 3 ships on this flank that are AFK. The Trento, the Normandy, and the Colorado. My entire team on this flank is AFK, and everyone else on this flank that wasn't AFK went somewhere else. So right now I'm just hoping that these guys will wake up, as I'm basically running for my life. Note that once they stopped targeting me, once I created enough distance and I was no longer that tempting of a target, I started using my front gun as well. Not before I created this distance. Every now and then you'll see me switch to torpedoes. Not really to torpedo, but to gauge the speed of the enemy ship and to see if he's stopping, if he's slowing down, to basically help me lead my shells. The shell velocity on the Königsberg is quite nice. The DPM is also quite nice for this tier, and because you have German HE, you also have quarter penetration, which means that normally when you calculate HE pen, you divide cruiser caliber by 6, but on the German cruisers, their specialty is that you divide it by 4, which means that your HE pen is far better, which is why you probably see me getting a lot of pens instead of getting shatters that you normally see on other cruisers. Add in with a decent fire chance, and the Königsberg, if allowed to farm in peace, can do a fair bit of damage and can be quite a nuisance to enemy battleships. This, combined with, of course, the squishiness, is one of the reasons why most people really, really like shooting this thing. Much to my joy, my teammates on this flank have started waking up and they are being more active. However, one of our DDs goes down and we have no one contesting the center. In epicenter, holding the cap control is incredibly important, and the more DDs die, the harder it becomes, especially if you're an incredibly squishy Königsberg. Right now, I'm just focus firing this one Congo, trying to get rid of him as quickly as possible. Looks like my Colorado finally woke up 5 minutes into the match, so we have some reinforcements. I switched to the next target, basically the biggest threat at this point. Trying to shoot the Fiji or the Duke of York on the flank is very, very dangerous with an Ismail sailing around in the center. This guy can potentially delete me. And even though Russian battleships aren't really your favorite target because, well, they can damage con quite quickly, I'm still just going to be wailing on him because I just need to get rid of him. He is such a problem. A battleship sitting in the center like that, he is too much of a threat. Luckily, I'm landing some good hits on him, and since he did just damage con, that fire will be burning until his next, well, incredibly quick damage con comes up again, but at least it will be some damage. He instantly goes for a shot for me, on me, but he gives too much broadside to the Sinop, and he gets chunked extremely hard by my entire team. You know, there were all these ships to shoot at, and he chose to shoot me. And this is something that you need to get used to when playing the German cruisers in general. The Königsberg, the Nürnberg, even the York to some extent, the Hipper, the Ruin. People love shooting these ships. They are fun to shoot because you get big numbers and you get devastating strikes. So you have to take this into account and play accordingly. The ideal situation is a situation where you can deal damage without taking any damage. That is the ideal cruiser situation. Especially low tier, you have no tankiness, you have very little utility, but you have damage. You have DPM, aka damage per minute output, and you want to find situations where you can maximize it. At this point though, I am seeing a bit of an opening in the center, and I'm trying to push in and see if I can maybe punish these destroyers, because killing the DDs is usually a surefire way to get a win if there's no carrier in the match. You know the incredible lead I have to take, and that is of course because it is a Leningrad, which is a Soviet destroyer. Generally they are faster than the rest, exception being French DDs, so the lead you have to take is very, very heavy. He smokes up and he disengages, but I keep wailing on him, at the same time keeping an eye on that Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar might be a tier 5 battleship, but he can absolutely devastate me, so I'm making sure that at all times I'm paying attention to priority target, because if he suddenly starts aiming at me, we have to turn in. I've avoided shooting him, but it looks like he is gonna give me a broadside, so I expert loader. Was that expert loader? Oh, then might have an 11-point captain. This was a very new captain. Chat will probably refresh my memory. If it was expert loader, then it means I have an 11-point captain, because I'm pretty sure I took last stand. If it's a 10-point captain, expert loader instead of last stand is a bit riskier, because as I mentioned earlier, this thing is very, very squishy. At this point though, I see there is an opportunity here. Julius Caesar is pretty low HP. Those Akatsuki Torps actually look very, very good. We're down on points, and we are in a fair bit of trouble because we have no center control. They have 4 destroyers in the center. But the Königsberg does have one rather special tool: hydroacoustic search. And the German hydro is generally better than everyone else's hydro because it has longer range. So at this point, as soon as the Julius Caesar is dead, we are full rushing into them. My team is dying left, right, and center. We're down 370 to 600 points, but I have the opportunity to make significant plays right here. I pop the Hydro and I start rushing in. I keep an eye on the Sinop, I keep an eye on the Duke of York is too far to harass me, so this gives me an opportunity to do what the Königsberg does best, and that is harass destroyers. These fast shell velocity, the Hydro, the fairly good firing angles, this all means that when you rush in like this, well, you're hydroing all the enemy DDs, you're getting them killed, and if they try to pop out behind islands, you can absolutely punish them. Now the HE Alpha isn't that special, but the fast shell velocity makes your guns quite accurate and quite easy to land. And one DD goes down, the Minsk tries to rush in, tries to basically ignore me. My team is still dying like flies left, right and center, but I am trying to secure this Minsk as soon as possible, and I do manage to do so. So that is the second DD down. The big threat now is the Sinop. Sinop is coming around the corner, we expert loader to AP. Whenever you get broadsides, you do want to shoot AP. Note that you don't go for the citadels on battleships, you don't have the penetration to be able to hit this citadel. You kind of go for that upper belt. You saw that sweet spot right above the citadel where your shells will shatter, and just trying to get those juicy pens on the upper belt. On Soviet battleships it's incredibly difficult though, because they're so tanky, so you end up getting shatters and overpens most of the time. Mutsuki pushes back into the cap, trying to contest it, but I guess he wasn't expecting me or not paying attention because he was running away from my team, so I managed to ambush yet another destroyer. This gives me Confederate because of the damage I've been dealing to the enemy. Mutsuki looks like he is dropping torpedoes at the last moment. I do take him down, and we expert loader back to AP. Whenever you can, shoot destroyers. This requires paying attention to the minimap and general awareness of how the battle is going, but you always want to be focusing at the destroyers. He is almost within 6 kilometers and moving towards me, so I drop torpedoes at him. Montecuccoli is giving too much broadside, so I instantly switch to him, score a quick citadel, and pick him up as well. At this point though, the threat is the Sinop. He is absolutely going to be shooting me, and even worse, the Mutsuki has dropped torpedoes. I'm trying to angle my belt, but unfortunately there's another set of torpedoes, and the Königsberg is not quite fast enough to be able to dodge those torpedoes, and I do eat one, taking me down to 2000 health. However, 2 of the torpedoes land on the Sinop, and at this point he's too focused trying to pick up the Conte de Cavour, so I aim for that same upper belt part, and I do manage to pick up the Sinop as well. At this point we have control of the center, but they still have 1 destroyer, and my Casta is very, very far away. I'm spotted, I'm trying to see if I can get undetected. I cannot, they are keeping me spotted, which is a big problem, which means the Mutsuki is somewhere nearby. You see that? I'm still detected, and this is where I know I will most certainly die. Mutsuki, we get vision of him, and at this point I hesitate, should I shoot? But then I see the new Duke of York is pushing in, and there's no way I can disengage. So at this point I know I will be going down, but the goal here is to get as much damage in on the Mutsuki as possible, and the damage I did allowed the Colorado to pick up the 4th destroyer as well, which means all their DDs are dead. At this point I'm far too deep into enemy territory to have any chance of disengaging, so we're just trying to basically sell our skin for the highest price we can, drop torps on Duke of York, and then we're gonna try to get some AP shells in on the Fiji. For some reason my Akasta is rushing the Fiji, something you never want to be doing. A tier 5 destroyer should not be going anywhere near a Fiji. The Duke of York picks me up, and I leave my team in a 4-2 with the full cap control. And ideally, of course, I would say this turns out into a glorious victory where all they have to do is defend the cap and the enemy dies. But sadly, in World of Warships fashion, they of course charge the enemy ships and get themselves killed one by one, and the game ends in a defeat. 133,000 damage, but I still like this game because this game showcased all the strengths and all the weaknesses of the Duke of York. The incredible squishiness, but also the ability to kite using the back guns and just farm damage with the HE, as well as the opportunities to get into the center of the action and basically cause havoc. It's very, very difficult because the ship is so squishy, and the main mistake people do is they try to make the play I made at the end of the game, they try to make that play at the start of the match. And that's not when you do it. Because at the start of the match, there are all the battleships alive, and they see you charging in, and they left-click you once, and that's the end of the battle, and you're back to port. Königsberg and Nuremberg are highly, highly focused on surviving, and that's something you're going to be seeing repeating itself in the Nuremberg commentary as well. Team score-wise, it was a 1.6k base XP game in Tier 7 matchmaking, which is obviously a good performance. It wasn't enough to win. The enemy had I think it was a King of the Sea, Fiji and Duke of York division that picked up my team that rushed them one by one. So obviously a very hard thing to overcome in a Königsberg alone. But we put in a good effort, I feel. Detailed report-wise, well, the damage dealt is largely HE with a splash of AP whenever the opportunity showed itself. The AP becomes more powerful when you get higher tier and more useful generally, but especially at tier 5 and tier 6 you do want to be utilizing the HE to a pretty wide extent, especially since most battleships tend to not have fire prevention, which means your fires can do more damage. In this case I only got 17,000 damage with the fires because unfortunately most of the ships that I got fires on either damage conned or just died afterwards. In terms of potential damage, we didn't take much. In terms of damage taken, well, that one torpedo from the Motsuki took more than half our health pool. So that really kind of puts it into perspective just how little you want to be taking damage in this thing. I will be moving through the entire German cruiser line. I might not do them all in order, but the plan is to cover them all because, well, we are grinding ourselves some new ships on the Russian account. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys next time.